Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I'm here to talk about Joshua Van versus Tagir Ulanbekov. My prediction for this fight is Tagir Ulanbekov wins. I've got him winning by decision, but a submission certainly wouldn't surprise me because he's a very good submission artist, and of course, that's the one way that Joshua Van has lost, which I'll get to in a minute or two. But Joshua Van, I think a lot of him is a young fighter, 22 years old, and he's already looked incredible, seasoned beyond his years. I'll always go back to that Jalga Zhumagulov fight in his debut, where the fight went the exact opposite way of the way I expected it to go, where I thought it'd be close early on and Jalgas would pull away. But instead, it was the exact opposite, and Van was the better man down the stretch against a very seasoned veteran in Jalgas and an excellent, I can't say he's an excellent point fighter because he usually loses by points, but in most of those fights, he probably should have won. Anyway, I think Joshua Van also showed to have great cardio in his next two UFC fights, taking out Felipe Bunes in his last one. That was one that was a very close round one and a hard round one. And then in round two, he was the only one that was still alive. And he took it to Felipe and got him out of there. Really beat him up to the body with every strike imaginable. And that's what slowed him down. And also, he took over against Kevin Borjas as well. Beat him by decision. Kevin Borjas gave him a good round. And then after that, Joshua Van looked better and better as the fight went on. So he's looked incredible cardio-wise. And outside the UFC, he's still got 7 other victories. And most of them are via TKO. 2 of them he's got via submission, just so you know he does know how to grapple. And one of those is actually a calf slicer, incredibly rare submission. So you got to hand it to him there. But yeah, his hands and his striking altogether is what's going to get him victories in the UFC. And here, against Tagir Ulanbekov, I don't know if he's going to be able to take over the fight in the same way like he has others. Tagir Ulanbekov, he has excellent cardio himself. He's a guy that we've seen him dig deep in round 3 at a higher level and come away with victories against Alan Nascimento and Bruno Silva, 2 very good fighters. And those were very competitive fights, but Tagir was able to scratch and claw for the victories. And of course, against Tim Elliott, it was a very close one. Could have gone either way, but Tagir was definitely the last man standing, and he won round 3. And that's one of his 2 losses, by the way. Tagir's been defeated twice, both by decision. The Tim Elliott fight, like I just said, could have gone either way, and so could the other fight. A 5-round decision loss to Jalga Zhumagulov, which I think was like a majority decision or whatever. He was definitely bullying Jalgis, took him down in multiple rounds and was doing well on the feet, but Jalgis had that Puja Tomar defiance about him, and he was outworking Tagir on the feet, especially in the end of the fight. Could have gone either way, to say the least. But yeah, Tagir, he's never been dominated. Those are his 2 losses, and they're both really tight fights, and we've seen him win in very tight fights against great opposition. And I think here he'll be able to do what he needs to do and get on top of Joshua Van. Because that's his biggest path to victory against Joshua Van. Not only is Tagir, I think, the better grappler, but that is the one spot where Van has lost. His one loss comes to this guy, Devon Jackson, a few years ago. The guy was like a fucking tank, a wrestler, tossed him around, really bullied him, put him in a bunch of different submissions, deep armbar, and Joshua Van survived until he couldn't. He was just on the ground too much, being dominated, fighting for survival, and then eventually succumbed to position and got choked in round 2. That's really the fight I see Tagir winning. He may not get the submission and it may not happen in round 2, but I think he's going to beat him on the ground. On the feet, it's not like he can't beat Joshua Van, but it's really tough because Joshua Van, as we've seen, he only excels down the stretch and his hands seem to get faster. So I think this might be a close fight early on, but I do think Tagir has that wrestling, that next level wrestling, where he is going to next level Joshua Van and pull away with a victory. Submission would not surprise me again because that's the one way Van has lost. Tagir Ulanbekov, he got Cody Durden out of there in round two, rear naked choke or face crank in his last fight. But his best weapon, submission wise, is the guillotine, which of course he got on Nate Maness a year and a half ago. And he almost got on Alan Nascimento, which would have been an incredible submission victory. So yeah, I think he's just a little more skilled and well-rounded, and he's shown enough traits where I think if he finds himself in a close competitive fight, I can at least count on him to scratch and claw and fight for my money. And I think he would win the decision over Joshua Van if you told me it went to the scorecards. So Tagir Ulanbekov is the pick. He is the bet. I bet on his money line at 2-1 odds. It's grown a little bit, or it's now like minus 230. But yeah, that he is my pick. I guess I'll wait for the props to see if anything jumps out, but I couldn't tell you if Tagir would win by submission or decision. Maybe I would. I'd have to look at what Joshua Van's props look like, because with the way he fights, if it's going his way, maybe he wins down the stretch because the guy's an excellent cardio fighter. But still, I'm not counting on that. I'm taking Tagir Ulanbekov to win, and right now I've just played his money line. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.